think we should just go ahead and get started, folks. And see, works every time. Good morning. I was just saying we're going to get started. All right, so today we're going to get an update on the Purple Line Corridor Coalition Draft Housing Plan. Is this different from what's...
That's going to be the slide, so if you want to make
Okay. And we have to welcome back Chris Gillis. Hi, Chris. And Melissa Bondi, Stephanie Killian, Lisa Cavoni. Great. Linda.
You are going to get a briefing today on the draft, the in progress of the Purple Line Corridor Coalition Housing Action Plan. This will be an opportunity for you all to make comments, ask questions while it's still under development. The expectation is that the coalition will have a final plan in the October timeframe. So this gives you time to weigh in now. I think that one of the things you want to remember is that this is about the whole corridor. So it's both Montgomery County and Prince George's County. And they will go over a lot of the data that they're looking at. One of the key things is trying to understand the affordable housing that's in place now so that you can understand what your goals are in terms of redevelopment, in terms of preservation or no net loss, those kinds of different things, and where that affordable housing is in the corridor. So I think this is really a good time for you all to have an update so we can do follow-up. The county DHCA, also Park and Planning, are in advisory capacities in this plan, and so they're here to answer questions, but really right now the presentation is from the coalition, from Melissa Bondi and Chris Gillis, and so I'll let them move forward with the presentation, and then we can have questions and dialogue.
Let's do that.
Okay.
Good morning. My name again is Melissa Bondi. I'm with Enterprise Community Partners, and on behalf of everyone involved with the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, as well as the Housing Action Team, sometimes known in this slide presentation as the HAT, we are very pleased to have time this morning to present to you on our progress and kind of our work to date on the draft Housing Action Plan for the Purple Line Corridor. I'm going to start with the first few slides, tell you a little bit just as a recap on our background and the work of the Housing Action Team, kind of our community-based work and stakeholder engagement that got us to where we are so far. And then my partner in crime, Chris Gillis from MHP, is going to talk a little bit more about the status of the plan itself, which, as Linda said, is still in draft form. So when we talk about the work of the Purple Line, we're really hoping to give you some information and a little bit of data. In the interest of time, we're not going into deep dive on data, but also to get your initial feedback, any questions that you may have that we can take notes on. And if we can't answer them here at the table, we certainly know that there's a much greater group of folks who are working on this who might be able to provide responses or information if we cannot provide it directly today. We're at the next slide. I'll start with a little bit of background on the Purple Line Corridor Coalition itself. It's been around for about 5 years. And really the role of the coalition was involved in saying, if major transit is coming to Montgomery County and Prince George's County, what are the things that exist along the pathway that we want to make sure we preserve? What are the things that we'd like to see as amenities or new benefits that transit-oriented development could provide? And then fundamentally, what are the things that we want to make sure are provided both before, during, and after construction? So really trying to think about what are immediate steps and then also things that might be on the more medium term for the kind of taking full advantage of all the benefits of the transit corridor. And really it's focused on not only ensuring community development, but that community development is equitable along every one of the 16 transit stations. To commemorate kind of the fundamental goals and the shared stakeholder priorities along the corridor, a community development agreement was created and then signed in November of 2017. Now, while an agreement was written, it's a non-binding commitment. This is really relating to the shared goals and shared vision of lots of community stakeholders, including both jurisdictions, the University of Maryland, and especially the National Center on Smart Growth, and a number of other partners. The original signing agreement was among 6 parties. Enterprise Community Partners was one of those parties, but it has been endorsed by hundreds of community-based organizations. And to give you certainly have the full list, but wanted to give you a sense that it really is both across jurisdictions and across many different sectors, a lot of support and interest in the goals of the Community Development Agreement. And it is born of that agreement that the work on the Housing Action Plan began. The Community Development Agreement speaks specifically about 4 major goals, and all the information in the CDA is organized around these 4 goals: business, workforce development, housing, and then overall community placemaking and culture. We're here to talk predominantly about the housing group, but there has been work that has been begun on all of these others, and they are cross-pollinated. Our intention is to make sure that none of these are developed in silos. I mentioned that there were some original key signatories on the Community Development Agreement, but we've been really benefiting from having so many other stakeholders lean in and work on much of the implementation for the CDA. You see a list here. This is not a complete list, but in terms of seeing kind of the whole big picture, both on the housing side and also how it might relate to some of the other goals, the business, the workforce development, and community amenities. These are groups that have really been trying to see things holistically, but we have other work groups, stakeholder groups, and a lot of direct outreach that has involved dozens of other nonprofit organizations, community serving organizations, business groups, and others who are participating. So that's kind of the background on why we exist and how we got to where we are. Now I want to speak specifically about the housing portion of our work and the work of the Housing Action Team, or the HAT. You'll see logos from Enterprise Community Partners, MHP, and the Housing Initiative Partnership. Mary Ann Dillon, who's the CEO of the Housing Initiative Partnership, is also here. Our 3 organizations serve as the steering committee for the Housing Action Team, and we're really grateful to have Mary Ann here as well to help answer questions or provide context as needed. You'll see on the 8th slide the full set of the housing team here. We've been benefiting tremendously from having staff from Montgomery County as well as Prince George's County involved in a lot of our work, also from Park and Planning, so that we're well informed on what are existing plans, what are existing policies, what are the things that are in place in both jurisdictions, as well as data and information on assets to help inform our work, while also looking to what things can we do to both ensure what we already have and then help to produce more in the field of housing moving forward. So within the housing overall goal, our group is focused on 4 core principles that are echoed in the Community Development Agreement, but that we know we need to flesh out further if a housing action plan is going to be meaningful. Our goal first, of course, is collective impact, recognizing that this should not be a plan that's directed only at what local government can and should do, but also on other sectors to make sure that we're bringing as much both knowledge and resources to producing and preserving housing. Our 4 kind of housing goals or principles are listed here on slide 9. It is first to ensure that at a minimum, the corridor maintains at least 19,000 total units, now that's both Montgomery and Prince George's County combined, of housing that's affordable at no less, or I'm sorry, at least 60% of the area median income.
Okay, wait, so how does that number get Where's that number from? And the boundaries of the corridor, are they drawn very specifically? So this is 19,000 units within a specific geographic boundary?
It is, and spoiler alert, other slides will provide a little bit more context on that, but yes, so the corridor as defined for the housing team is within 1 mile of where the transit stations are located. And so if you think about what the actual transit lane looks like, it's a 1 mile boundary
Yeah.
around those stations.
Oh, you said the station or the line, 1 mile of the line?
Well, it's the line, I believe. Yeah,
Okay,
the line.
So it's a band.
Correct.
And how
Correct.
many units of housing are there today?
Let's see if that information
gotta
is
be a lot.
here. So if
100,000?
we skip ahead to slide 10, I provided information here that specifically relates to Montgomery County, and you'll see under the first full bullet, rental housing units within 1 mile of transitway. There are 26,513 counted in Montgomery County. And then if you add in Prince George's as well, it's about 42,700.
Not as much as I thought. And your goal is that 19,000 of them will be affordable to 60% of AMI. Do you know how many of them are affordable at that level now?
So if I remember correctly, if I remember correctly, the intention is to do no net loss. And so that doesn't literally mean every single unit that's affordable today must be affordable in the future, but to see what is the demand currently and to make sure we don't go below that number. So if you look at the second bullet on slide 10, it says that the total number of rental units, again, within that 1 mile bubble is 19,000, which is about 45% of the total. But of that 19,000, 6,500 are located in Montgomery County.
Okay, wait, sorry, I need to absorb this. So, all right, you're saying that today there are 6,500 rental units below 60% of AMI in Montgomery County in the Purple Line Corridor.
Correct.
And that is 45% of the total rental units in Montgomery County in the corridor.
No, the 45% is based on the total across both counties. The 19,000, which includes Prince George's, and so a majority of the 19,000 are in Prince George's, right? 19,000 minus 6,500 leads you to the amount of units at or below 60% AMI that are in Prince George's County. But
Okay.
45% of all rental units across both counties, that 19,000 number, is 45% of the number in the earlier bullet, the 42,759.
Okay. Interesting. So, all right. Well, we're gonna go deep on the no net loss, framework here as we get to that in the presentation. But is there a specific number for Montgomery County that you think we ought to preserve? Then is it?
So if you look on this, where I'm still on slide 10.
Yeah.
You'll see there are two bullets, number 2 and number 3. The second bullet says that there are about 6,500 rental units below 60% AMI in Montgomery County. So if we follow the principle of no net loss, then that would be a good starting target. It doesn't literally have to be all 6,500 of the units exactly as they are today,
Right.
but the same concept. Then if you look at bullet number 3, and this is again across both jurisdictions, 8,500 units that are counted among the 19,000 total do have some affordability provisions in place today. Either they're MPDUs, and I have some breakout information about MPDUs,
Okay.
or they're under federal contract, maybe they're in a low-income housing tax credit project or something like that. Just because something is under affordability protection today doesn't mean that that's
Sure.
in perpetuity, right? So some of them may be expiring, but some of them are under protection today, and that's good news.
Right. Makes a big difference if you know that they'll be there in the future. You don't have to factor them in your no net loss formula.
Correct. And in fact, a majority of committed affordable units of this 8,500 are in Montgomery County. So that's a testament to the policies that are already in place, and that's great news. But we also know that there are some that are not under contract. They're in private ownership, or they may have expiring federal contracts that are not within the county's control. So we don't want to rest on our laurels.
Okay, we have some questions. Let's focus on, information, and we'll talk about policy in a bit.
Now, how would you like? Would you like me to continue?
Mr. Joinda.
Just while we're on the slide, so I don't lose the thought. Thank you. Good morning, everybody. So 65, just so I'm 100% clear, 6,500 units in Montgomery County are below 60% of AMI in this 1 mile of the transit line.
That's exactly right.
Now, obviously, they're all over the place, right? Not some are at 30 and some are at 40, some are at 50. So
That's
do you
right.
have, is there a breakdown?
So
that
the information is available. I'm not
Okay.
sure that we were prepared to dive
that's
quite
fine.
that deep in this
I just would love
presentation,
to
just
see
with the
it.
time we have.
So,
Of course.
And Linda, just so you hear, I just want to see the breakdown of where the AMI is, what the.
Well, I actually was just asking
Okay.
Stephanie a question, which is if MPDUs are counted, MPDUs are set at 65% for garden apartments and generally 70% for high-rise. So
Right.
I think we should take a look and see what the spread is. It might be a little higher.
Yep.
For the ones under control, it might be a little higher than 60%.
Yeah,
Might be higher if MPDUs are not counted.
If MPDUs are counted,
counted,
they
it
would
would
be
go up a
above
little bit,
60% of AMI. Just barely,
Right.
but just to be clear, since the line here was about 60%.
Right, okay. Yeah, so that will be helpful to see. That's another variable that I think Councilmember Friedman was going to ask. And then the 19,000 is Prince George's and Montgomery.
Yes, sir.
And then the 8,500, you said a good percentage of those are in Montgomery County. That number could go up if we add the MPDUs, but I'd also love to see that breakdown as well. And then the other number, 26,513, that is the total number of units, regardless of no restrictions, within the 1 mile corridor.
For rental, correct.
For rental, okay.
Correct.
And, okay, so I'll pause there because I know we're going to do policy, but I just want to be clear on the numbers. Thank you.
So, for example, in Bethesda, there's a number of buildings going up with 25% MPDUs, we hope. Well, those will count. They're within 1 mile of the station. But
Yeah.
you may not have them in there yet because they haven't been created, but
That's right.
they would count towards our.
That's right. We have some information from either the county or National Center on Smart Growth or both that talks about the number of MPDUs in the pipeline. And so we try to track, and we should definitely check on the AMI level. But the notes that I have say that the current number of Montgomery County MPDUs within 1 mile of the purple line is 935. And MPDUs in the pipeline is about 1,700.
Wow.
So, and again, we confirm all the
Well,
information.
that
make
is
sure that you
great.
have
I
all
think
of
it's a
it.
testament to you need to build more housing to get more affordable housing. But say it with me because I say it a lot. The MPDU question, I appreciate you saying that the 65 to 70 because that's what I was going to ask. Because the 60%, we the problem is we have different threshold cutoffs, and so the data is hard to understand. My understanding is that, and has been confirmed, several times at similar briefings like these, that about 30 to 40% of our MPDU program are below MPDU levels because of various tax credit programs that they then become eligible for, various nonprofits who are able to buy them. I mean, there's a lot of secret sauce to the MPDU program that isn't just the affordable levels that they're created. It opens up a whole plethora of affordability levers that then can be utilized that otherwise wouldn't be available at market rates. I think that is lost in a lot of people's discussion about affordable and deeply affordable, that creating affordable housing creates the opportunities to make deeply affordable housing with other more reasonable levers through programs that we already have. But does the data pick that up, right? If we have an MPDU and then that MPDU has then a tax credit that it is eligible for, or a nonprofit is buying it and providing it, the Jewish Foundation for Group Homes, purchases it, or Victory Housing is providing it through a partnership with an organization to somebody with, developmental differences who makes, very little money. Are we picking that part up, or is it just what the restriction on it is or the published rent on it is?
Hi, this is Stephanie Killian with the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. We do track the information on low-income housing tax credits and other financing on a project. We would not at this point track the difference between a unit that's being leased or master leased by the Jewish Foundation for Group Homes versus another rental MPDU. We're hoping to in the future, but at this point, we don't. What we do have is surveys that we've done of our rental MPDUs, and we've seen that consistently about a third of the units are rented to very low-income households. We are hoping to be able to, in the future, figure out some ways to get that information more systematically, and we're working on that now. But so yes, we track the different funding sources. We don't track who rents the units at this point.
I'd love to work with you on that. It's something I'm particularly interested in, the master lease from nonprofits and them providing to some of the most vulnerable residents in
Yes.
our community. And I don't think we do a good enough job of capturing that. And it's a story that I think we should be telling more of. It's one of the best parts, I think, of our MPDU
Right.
program. And I hope that we can get the data and then
Absolutely.
all of us can really sell that part of the program, because it's often lost in these discussions when we just pick an income AMI threshold and, say how many people do we have, above and below it. And I think it causes a challenge. So the question about Bethesda and about the MPDUs, how are we capturing, if MPDU is at 65%, how do we capture it here if it's the cutoff is 60%? How do we know what is at 60, what is at 65, and what is at 70?
I'll confirm with the group how they're breaking out the different income bands. But what we have are lists of all the income-restricted affordable housing in the county and then focused on the Purple Line corridor. And we have it broken out by 30%, 40%, I believe 50%, 60 and 80. So we have it broken down by the different income tranches that are assisted. And so there is a lot of detail behind this. I'm not quite sure how they include, or if they include or don't include the MPDUs in this number, and we'll confirm that and get back to you on that.
Right. Thank you.
Great, please continue.
Thank you. So I'm going to flip to slide number 11. And so this is an example, it is solely provided as an example of the information that helps us to get to those rolled up numbers that we provided in the previous slide. And so in the interest of time, we didn't want to provide an overly data heavy, not because you wouldn't be interested, but because we didn't want to get too lost in the numbers. But this is some of the information that the National Center on Smart Growth has been collecting in cooperation with county staff, park and planning, and then also, of course, with Prince George's County for the units that apply there, and trying to help get us a sense really of what are the rents being paid, what are the number of units, and then you'll see later where are they located. So we have a better sense of not only what's needed, but where is it needed, whether it's preservation or helping to meet current and future demand beyond what's there today. Two other quick points I wanted to make on this slide. The first is that since 2006, median rents have increased roughly 20% in Montgomery County and about 15% in the Purple Line corridor. So the rest of the county is pacing it a little bit higher than for the corridor itself. We do take community level data into account, say differences between Silver Spring and New Carrollton, for example, and we do rely on a lot of rent survey data. Sorry, someone's trying to get my attention. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is we're also paying attention to things like cost burden. So there's the actual rent that we can track, but that may not tell us what the incomes are of the people who are there. We know that especially in non-subsidized units, in the naturally occurring affordable housing, we do have cost burden, people who are paying more than 30% of their income for rent. And so that also kind of comes into our thinking generally about what should we be looking for, not only in terms of preservation, but also if we wanted to build more, whether for ownership or for rental, to try and help keep cost burden below 50% at severe, but trying to get to that ideal that HUD has set at 30% or below. That's all I have for slide 11. Slide 12 acknowledges that although this work is really fundamental to our understanding of the existing needs for residents along the corridor and what their future needs might be, it is not in a vacuum. There are many other initiatives that are underway, and every hexagon that you see on this slide acknowledges things that are happening. From a national level grant that Kaiser Permanente One for accelerating investments in healthy communities, which is really looking at what is the capital that is needed, the dollars that are needed to be invested in order to provide housing affordability that will ensure better health outcomes for both clients of Kaiser Permanente, but also of the community, as well as a Federal Transit Administration planning grant that was awarded to the Maryland Department of Transportation, and that is being led in part by the National Center on Smart Growth. That's a $2 million grant over 2 years that also helps to support this work. The National Center on Smart Growth is currently hiring a director to be focused directly on work of the Purple Line, so we're hopeful to have that person on board. But you see there are a variety of other elements that are really informing and being informed by the work of the Housing Action Team toward the Housing Action Plan. And so there's a lot of, I think, cross-pollination of goals, looking at things not just what are the policy initiatives that are needed, what is local government resources that are needed, but also what additional leverage can come from the private sector to help support some of the key goals that we have, but that also meet other goals, both of the Community Development Agreement and then some of the other elements that are listed on this slide.
Is this the time to ask about the Kaiser Permanente program?
Sure. I'll answer
Explain
what I
that
can.
again? Yeah.
We work pretty closely with them at Enterprise, but that doesn't mean I know everything they know.
So tell us, say it again.
Sure. So this is the Accelerating Investments for Healthy Communities. It's run through CCI, which is, I believe, called the Center for Community Investment. And this is partially funded by national funders who are interested in working with health organizations across the country who have an enlightened self-interest in caring about the built environment and specifically access to housing that is safe, in quality, decent, and affordability, and that can help lead to better health outcomes for residents who live there who are also clients of health care organizations. So Kaiser Permanente has made a pretty big investment both in housing affordability through a $200 million kind of treasury allocation out of their bottom line dollars into housing affordability across the country, recognizing that it's actually fundamental to the outcomes for their patients. But they also participate in this national level work, which is interested in helping to build an attractive kind of, not a pipeline, but to really look at what kinds of capital might be needed in order to meet some of our goals along the Purple Line corridor that have good health outcomes.
When you say capital, you mean how much money might it take to buy some of these buildings and put them into, a protected, a regulated income status or rent status, but also to ensure that the building is managed in a way that promotes the health of the residents and things like that?
That's exactly right.
Is that pretty much?
That's exactly right. So we know that the level of market interest in or around the Purple Line is only going to intensify. There's going to be a lot of investors, whether they're benevolent or whether they're from this area or they're from wherever, who'll be interested in buying property, selling property, speculating on property, or trying to change what's there today. And so the Accelerating Investments for Healthy Communities is saying, how do you attract and direct capital, equity, debt, permanent financing, and support in order to get the community outcomes that Montgomery County, Prince George's County, the Community Development Agreement seek? And so in doing that,
Kaiser going to be a affordable housing funder, or is this technical
So
support?
The good news for our region is that Kaiser is already a funder of housing affordability. They made a commitment last year to invest $200 million across the country. And of that money, some of it is guaranteed to come to the Mid-Atlantic region for Kaiser, which for them is Maryland, the district, and Northern Virginia. But they have tremendous interest in the Purple Line corridor, and so I know that that's an area of priority for them. It's not the only one, but it is an area of priority. So they are already working with CDFIs like Enterprise, but not exclusively Enterprise, to help make decisions on where and how to invest in preserving and expanding housing affordability. This is an additional program that is a grant to help support building the infrastructure in place in order to do interventions to allow for more funding to come in.
Former Council Member Leventhal is leading this initiative.
Indeed he is.
So George, if you're watching, awesome. Can't wait to see what you do here.
That's right.
Thanks.
Thank you. So the last slide that I have is just to give you an idea of the fact that not everything that we do is numbers data in tables, but that we also do try to do mapping, and CSG has been incredibly helpful in this. And this is just one snapshot. Just to give you a teaser, and it acknowledges that we have little red dots. The little red dots represent a combination of big and smaller rental buildings that may include housing affordable to those making 60% of the area median income. And so the Silver Spring to Landing Park area has the highest number of building and units within the corridor that fit that description. Many of these are small buildings, and so we know that our tools for small buildings aren't quite the same as for larger buildings. What isn't shown here are the number of private homes that also provide rental units, or that themselves as whole homes may be renting. So we know it's an important part of the affordable stock, but currently we haven't captured that quite as well as we have for some of the other multifamily buildings. We know here that we have rents rising higher compared to people's income levels being able to rise, and we know that housing quality and safety is an issue. And so those are all parts of how we are approaching the plan.
I am a little surprised by this chart. It seems to be showing that I would have thought there would be more red dots on the Prince George's side in Langley Park. Is there just not a lot of larger buildings there? Is that?
It may also be kind of where the graph cuts off. But as I understand kind of what this slide purports to show, it is trying to show individual addresses. So it's all the dots are the same size, whether it's representing 100 units in a building or 10 units in a building.
I see. So some of those on one side could be a 10-unit building. On the other side, it could be a 100-unit building.
Correct.
Both
It's
get a
just
red
plotting
dot.
addresses. Correct.
Interesting. Okay.
So that concludes my part of our presentation, kind of the background and kind of how the Housing Action Team getting together. It's my pleasure to turn it over to my partner, Chris Gillis from MHP, to talk about the plan itself.
Thank you. Good morning, council members. For the record, Chris Gillis with Montgomery Housing Partnership. So the third and final part of our presentation this morning covers the Housing Action Plan itself, and we'll also delve into a little bit of the community and stakeholder engagement that we've done to inform the plan itself. So you see here, we've been careful not to try and duplicate efforts that are already underway. There are many organizations that are aimed at addressing the housing crisis. So we're trying not to duplicate those efforts. So we're looking at master plans and sector plans that the council's approved in these station areas. We're also looking at reports that, say, the planning department has done with their rental survey from 2 years ago. There's also inventories that are underway on county-owned property as well as religious-owned land. So that will inform the plan as well. And there's also been extensive community engagement throughout this process. As Melissa pointed out, that we kind of kicked off the Housing Action Plan back in February, and community engagement started in March. So round one consisted of in-person meetings with for-profit and nonprofit developers, county staff, and community and civic organizations. And then in April, we conducted a community housing survey. We relied on our nonprofit partners mostly to help us get out the word about it. It was a simple 10-question survey that we asked residents to fill out. It had questions such as, where do you live? Are you a renter or a homeowner? And then, could you go back to the previous slide, Linda? And I'll get into it more in the next slide. And then, so we're just starting round two of engagement currently. So it's another round of conference calls and meetings with stakeholders, and that will continue through this month and into next month. Next slide, please. So the housing survey itself, we had a very high response rate. We received almost 600 surveys. The majority of them were from Prince George's County. Only about 28% were from Montgomery County. Obviously we would have liked the response rate in Montgomery County to be higher. But that being said, this wasn't the only opportunity for residents to weigh in on the plan itself. It represented the very first opportunity. So as you can see here, the majority of the respondents were homeowners, even though most of the residents, so only about, homeowners represent about 40% of residents in the Purple Line corridor. So it was slightly out of proportion to the number of actual homeowners. And the survey also included questions to residents regarding how they would prioritize housing in the corridor. So we wanted to know if how they felt we should prioritize housing based on AMI. So should this, or household income, so should the housing be directed towards people making $25,000 to $50,000 a year, $50,000 to $75,000, and so on. And then we also had a question asking residents if they thought the housing being preserved or created should be directed at smaller households, say 1 or 2 individuals, or larger households, 4 to 6. Next slide, please. And there were also two questions in the survey. One consisted of asking residents if they thought that the plan should focus on homeowners or renters, and the majority thought that the plan should focus on benefiting both renters and homeowners. And lastly, there was a question regarding public funds and dedicating more public funds to housing. So just over 58% of respondents indicated that they support or strongly support reallocating more funds to housing trust funds in Montgomery and Prince George's counties. Next slide. So this shows you a little bit of the community engagement that's going on right now. About 10 days ago, we had a community and civic stakeholder meeting. A week from tomorrow, we have a meeting with Montgomery County residents in the Long Branch area. And the very next day, on July 31st, we have a stakeholder meeting with nonprofit and for-profit developers. Next slide. These are some additional meetings. There's some meetings being held in Prince George's County, and there's also a meeting being planned for both Montgomery and Prince George's County that's geared at Spanish-speaking residents. So we had a really high rate of Spanish-speaking respondents to the survey. Actually, about 25% of the respondents speak Spanish. And this is kind of a big picture. This is talking about the Housing Action Plan itself. This is a big picture overview of some of the categories for recommendations that we'll be presenting. This is kind of represents our current thinking. There will be probably 10 to 12 recommendation areas. So you can see they're kind of divided into 3 different categories: housing production, preservation, and tenant protection actions. There's cross-county actions, and then lastly, internal coalition commitments. So the point I want to emphasize here is that these are not just recommendations that we're asking government to take. The stakeholders of the Housing Action Team are expected to bear some of the responsibility in achieving the recommendations, whether it's the planning department, nonprofit partners like MHP or Enterprise. So I don't know if there are any questions regarding some of these categories or.
Okay, wait. So these are draft recommendations of the overall coalition.
These are the categories. There will be, specific recommendations for each of these areas. Okay. For example, we know that the county has been seeking to expand tenant protections, so that's been a focus for us. And the next slide, we'll get into a finer level of detail. I'll give you some. You can skip ahead to the next slide, Linda. This goes a little bit deeper. This gives you a look at kind of a preview at some of the specific recommendations that we might be likely to make. One of them involves the county's payment in lieu of taxes program, or pilot program. You're probably familiar with it. This reduces the tax bill for property owners that are providing affordable housing to low-income individuals. I think the pilot program kind of gets overlooked every budget season because you take it up at the same time when you're discussing the HIF, and there isn't a lot of attention paid to it, but it's just as impactful as the HIF, because unlike the HIF, these aren't dollars that we have to repay to the county. This isn't like in the form of a loan like you would get with the HIF. So it's very impactful. So we'll likely be making some recommendations to maybe make this the pilot process more of a by right process like the district has, where as long as the property owner is providing a certain level of affordability, that they receive this pilot.
What's your timing on those recommendations? I've got Teddy's already at work preparing a future PHED session on the pilot program. I just have some basic questions about it as well.
So I can jump ahead. The draft housing action plan, we hope to make it available about 2 to 3 weeks from now, and it'll be available publicly on the Purple Line Corridor Coalition's website. So as soon as it goes live, we'll email you and your staff to let you know. And we would also invite you, if you're inclined, to share this with your constituents, to invite them to share their feedback on the plan. We expect the comment period to be open for about 30 days, and then we'll take those comments and then hopefully release a final action plan in early to mid-October.
And
So
when
that's kind of
you
the
say-
timeline right now.
Okay. When you say nonprofit developers doing 100% affordable, I mean, is every MHP building essentially qualify,
it's-
or is that a subsection of the projects that you do where you're only, you're not doing mixed income?
No, and none of our projects are 100% affordable at this point. They're all, mixed income.
I feel like isn't
And the
mixed
market
income
rate
is the
helps to
preferred
subsidize.
model?
What's
Yeah.
that?
Yeah. Isn't mixed income the preferred model,
It is.
generally speaking?
It is. So we might have to go back and correct that recommendation. And there, obviously, not surprisingly, there will be recommendations relating to the Housing Trust Fund. So we are appreciative of the council's action this past budget season, increasing the HIF. We'll likely be recommending similar increases in future years.
Because the county executive had recommended a reduction in the HIF. Is that right, Councilmember Friedson?
Yeah, I believe it was $5 million under what we did last year. And thank you for your advocacy, because MHP's advocacy and the advocacy of many of the nonprofit housing providers really helped to make the case publicly for why this was so important and how there was a market for this, and we needed to make sure that we kept up with what we have been doing in recent years. So thank you.
Right. And so, as you know, the HIF currently stands at about $65 million, and about half of that is for housing production. So we've set a goal here of getting to 100 million over the next 3 to 4 years. That's admittedly pretty ambitious, but we think that's kind of the direction that the county needs to be moving in if it's going to be achieving this no net loss goal that we've established. And then the last point I want to emphasize, there will also be a focus on breaking down silos. So to the extent possible, we're trying to identify actions that both Montgomery and Prince George's County can take collectively, that we don't want Montgomery and Prince George's County to be going in different directions. So, I think this is especially true for the Tacoma-Langley area, where there's a lot of challenges there, where you have the city of Tacoma Park, their boundaries, you have Montgomery County, you have Prince George's County, and then you have state-owned right-of-ways in University Boulevard and New Hampshire Avenue running through it as well. So we kind of see ourselves as being a convener and being a platform for coordination between all these different parties, and that's the value we think we can bring to the table.
Okay.
And then the next slide, please. So I've already talked about some of the community engagement that's happened previously, and going forward, like I said, we hope to make available the draft housing action plan in the next 2 to 3 weeks. It'll be available on the Purple Line Coalition website, and then following that, there will be a public comment period of about 30 days, and then we'll go back and regroup and produce a final housing action plan in early to mid-October.
Early to mid-October, okay. Does that conclude the presentations?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, I will kick us off, and then we'll go to council members. So there's a lot here. Are you going to be able to tell us like what it would take for us to hit our numbers as far as, if you look at the universe of buildings, which is fairly knowable, how many of them are, I guess you really don't know what's going to be coming on the market, but, kind of a more specific development strategy for the corridor. I mean, we don't have to do this all at once, this is probably a 10-year game plan to get control of all these units, I would imagine, or longer. What share we might want to think about as buying existing properties and just owning them and operating them, as opposed to what we achieve through a no net loss development strategy where we're providing incentives, development incentives, height and density in order to support redevelopment. Like what share comes from redevelopment, what share comes from just acquisition? Do you have any, are you going to be able to get to that kind of detail? Stephanie?
Yes. There are a number of different initiatives that are coming along, really at the impetus of the Purple Line Plan.
Could you please just pull that
the-
mic down a little bit closer,
sure.
Stephanie? Thanks.
The planning department is already looking at an inventory of underutilized land and land that's owned by religious institutions and the county government. We don't expect to find a large amount of vacant land in this fairly dense part of the county, but we will have an inventory of that, and that will give us opportunities of development opportunities in the corridor. At DHCA, we've gotten from County Stat a list of all housing developments within the mile corridor of the Purple Line. We've taken that list and are fine-tuning it to really start to identify high-priority properties that either we may want to go out with some type of acquisition or preservation strategy, or we want to have on our radar list if there's any change in the property. We're looking at things like properties that have moderate income, moderate rents right now, have a large number of large bedroom units, and may also have some issues related to them, high code violations, high evictions, either rents that are rising or rents that are going down, something that gives you an indication that the property might be somewhat at risk of a change either in its use or its ownership. So we're in that process now, hoping to be able to complete a lot of that analysis right around the same time the plan comes up. What you'll probably hear from us.
As in the next couple of weeks?
Well, no, this will be like in the fall.
October.
Yes.
October, yeah.
More than likely, you'll get from us on some summaries and analysis. We generally don't put out the names of the properties that might be on our list because that changes the nature of the property. So we'll be identifying, probably 10, 15, 20, whatever the number will be, of properties that will be priority properties. So you'll have some idea of the parameters without a specific list, though. We'll know the list.
Okay.
Lisa Gavoni for the record. I also want to mention that we have a preservation study. We have selected the consultant. Ms. Keeley and I are meeting this afternoon to discuss how to proceed. We expect to get started very quickly. And one of the things we want to look at is all the preservation tools that we have. How are they working? What are other jurisdictions doing? And how we can work with not only land use and zoning, but DHCA policy to improve if possible.
It's a general Montgomery County preservation study.
It is a general preservation study, but we will probably have location-specific tools. As we know, what worked in Veers Mill would not necessarily work in Bethesda, so we wanted to look at everything we've done previously and what we could do in the future. Right. Alexandria and Arlington had a previous study where they kind of looked at it, and then they took the tools that they received and applied them to a small area master plan, so we feel like we could probably do something similar here.
I mean, do you know, for example, I think you mentioned there are 1,700 MPDUs in the pipeline. That's 20% of the number of units we need to add, I think, something like that, right?
Right, but
and that pipeline is not nearly what is potential.
Correct, but I also think that it's pointing to the pipeline. Every single unit in the pipeline was in Bethesda or Silver Spring. And so we want to also look at areas like Long Branch and see what we can do to create a mixed income community there. So maybe the focus there is keeping the units, but maybe adding some to create a more mixed use income environment.
You're right. Well, I mean, I remember when in my first term, we did the Long Branch sector plan, and we allowed for a lot of development in the commercial core, but we did not include any of the surrounding residential properties because we wanted to be able to preserve the affordable housing, but we didn't really have a tool to do that. Since then, we have developed a concept of the MOU regulated layer of affordable housing on top of the MPDU layer that could get us to a very high level of affordability potentially if you have a private sector partner who's willing to make a big investment in those terms. So, to what extent we need to look at some of those properties as part of a preservation strategy under this no net loss framework, I think is a question I'd like to know. Can we get there just by building out what we've already zoned for? or do we need to go beyond what we've already zoned for?
That's a great question. I think that, as you know, this is probably going to be a parcel by parcel kind of specific. What worked in Veers Mill and the Halpine properties, because they had 33 acres and we can move around the density and play with it, but it didn't work on the other parcel in Veers Mill that I'm forgetting because it was so constrained. So I think we want to look at like tools that we could, what we could work for like a large parcel, what could work for constrained, and kind of
Exactly.
focus on no net loss.
But pull it all together in a very, coherent, specific, credible plan that says this is our plan to fulfill the vision of our affordable housing strategy for the corridor. It seems doable to me. The number of units that we're talking about seems doable to me, not overnight, but.
Yeah, and if I may, just to add on to the conversation, in slide 9, we talked a lot about the 19,000 no net loss unit, but there are 3 other principles that kind of guide our work and get, I think, Councilman Reamer, to your point, which is we can't just preserve our way out of this, and we can't just build our way out of it. We have more control over building in some ways than we do in preservation, because you need to have someone willing to play, whether it's using right of first refusal or working with, a willing seller, or it's someone who owns a property that's expiring and is looking for what that next level of affordability is that they can commit. But regardless, we're going to need a both and strategy. And we haven't talked very much about home ownership today, but that's also a core principle as well, whether it's preserving those who are homeowners, but maybe of lower incomes and want to make sure that they're not going to get either property tax priced out or for another reason priced out of living along the corridor, as well as creating home ownership opportunities for those who are looking for a path to home ownership along the Purple Line. And so that's another element that I think goes to your point of having a really comprehensive plan. So I wanted to acknowledge that. And then the last thing is that while we talk often, and I'm guilty of this as a housing policy person, but we talk a lot about units, but we're also talking about people and households. And so mitigating displacement of those who would like to be beneficiaries of this tremendous public investment and also have built lives and want an opportunity to stay. Also thinking about the tenant protections and what are the roles we can play on that front as well. So it's not just solely a unit calculation, though that's important, but it's also a people-based calculation.
Sure. I mean, we're doing a lot around tenant protections. We have many bills before the council or that we've passed recently, or I'm sure that we'll pass in the future. It has been a big priority, and we would welcome any further suggestions. What about the Tacoma Park rent control ordinance? How does that factor in? Is that considered to be under control if the unit is affordable today, according to your median income calculations? Or I imagine there must be some units, some buildings that are within a mile that are covered by rent control.
I don't personally know the answer to that question. I agree with you, but I don't know to what extent that specific element, like how many buildings does it apply to, and then were they counted or not, but it's something we'll definitely look into.
Yeah, could you please?
Absolutely.
It may be relevant. I was just thinking about the Tacoma-Langley Crossroads area, which probably has a huge development potential, but then also there are existing buildings in Tacoma Park that are under rent control. So that's
Right, so when we look at the affordable housing stock in this corridor or anywhere, we look at the income restricted units, those units that are required to stay affordable, and then we look at the market rate affordable units. And I know that a substantial portion of the rental housing stock in the city of Tacoma Park is more affordable and probably does fall within the band of market rate affordable. I'm not sure all at 60%. But in that area, yes.
okay. So
So
can you
that would
sure to
But we can,
We'll
that's an
confirm it.
interesting thing to sort out.
thank you. All right. Well, give my colleagues a chance here. Will, you're up first.
Thank you for the presentation. This is all very helpful information. So the preservation study countywide, to start with you, Lisa, but you will give some direction for specific, and this is one of the corridors that you'll look at with the consultant.
We have
hopefully.
not exactly decided the geographic. Today is our first meeting, but I think that both Ms. Keeling and I feel strongly that the Purple Line needs to be a market-specific area that we look at. Just like for the rental housing study, we had 14 sub-areas. This will also have sub-areas that will look at geographic-specific targets that we could do.
Well, I will add my voice to I think that's the right strategy, so if that helps at all. But,
Yes,
and then I don't know, this may be a question for you, but anyone can address it. There, in that we just did a walking tour of the Long Branch community, some of us a couple days ago, which I grew up in, and it was a walk down memory lane. And I'm often struck by that's an area where you have Prince George's County very close, one of our many border areas where it's, you're sharing. And I think some apartment buildings, for example, like Suburban Hill, on the junk corner of New Hampshire and Piney Branch. I used to live there for a brief time. I think some of the buildings in Montgomery County and some's in Prince George's, or it's one of those types of things. For those types of communities and units and multifamily housing, how are you working together with Prince George's? Because I think there could be opportunities, but also challenges in that context. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. I'll start, and then if anybody else wants to add on, please do so. So you're absolutely right. The good news is that since 2014, going through the signing of the Community Development Agreement and then all of the work that we've talked about today, we've been fortunate to have Prince George's County as an equal partner in all of the ways that Montgomery County has been a fantastic partner on the staff side, on the elected official side, and then also in the constituent groups side. And Mary Ann Dillon here from Housing Initiative Partnership, of course, is one of our great leading voices in Prince George's, but also in Montgomery County. And so there are a number of stakeholders who are not solely one jurisdiction or another, but we have been actively engaged with Prince George's County as well. One of the things that we'll acknowledge in the Housing Action Plan explicitly, of course, is that the existing policy environment, the existing kind of regulations, funding, and other mechanisms that are in one county may not be true in the other. Right. So some of our recommendations will apply to both. Some of our recommendations will be targeted more at one versus another county, and I'll give you one example. So Prince George's has on paper a right of first refusal provision similar, but they haven't built the infrastructure to implement it. Mm-hmm. And so they've been working with staff from Montgomery County on lessons learned, how does it work, what are the things that we should be keeping in mind in order to be able to take advantage of that as best practice. Mm-hmm. And so we are already seeing examples of cross-county collaboration, which is terrific. We know that at the border, and the border is a complex place, there are going to be areas where we're going to need to be really thoughtful, sensitive, possibly site-by-site specific, as Lisa mentioned. But the good news is that we seem to have really good cooperation already to do so.
And I'm excited about that too. I was whispering to my colleagues, this Purple Line Caucus, I think Councilmember Galaris and I are the representatives. So the TBD is that we need to pull that together. And I was speaking with her last week about that. Yeah, so that, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, but that it's a group led by elected officials from each jurisdiction, but could be more than others as well, to just kind of get together and have this cross-county collaboration and talk about these issues in a kind of organized way. I think it's facilitated by this Coalition for Smarter Growth and there may be other people. You as well. It's going to be you. Okay, so I'll see you
through the National Center on Smart Growth. Yes,
Center for Smart Growth. So
yes, an email will be coming to you soon.
Okay,
I'm sure.
Good. Well, I look forward to that. So I think we had talked about in the fall, kind of bringing the group together, but I don't know. I got self-selected or volunteered, or the combination of both.
I think the term you're looking for is voluntold.
Yeah, right. Exactly. So I'm excited about that. I think there could be some unique opportunities too to work together and have some projects that are really have the joint vision of both. The other question I had, so I agree with you 100% on home ownership. There's so many people that have lived in some of these communities, particularly Long Branch and other, where there was kind of the first, if it's a duplex, first home that you were able to buy, and people have been there 30, 40 years, and we want to make sure that if they're seniors, for example, that they can stay in their home. And so I'm glad you're looking at that. I'll be very interested to see recommendations around that. Just on the numbers again, this is my last question, and then I'll pass it to my colleagues. The 1,900, going back to that slide, if we could, there we go. Linda's already, see? That's why you're a veteran.
Thank you, Linda.
So 19,000 in the entire area, 6,500 in Montgomery County, across the corridor. And that is one thing that would be helpful for me, and I know you did it with the red dot. Could we break that down a little more specifically around the parts of the corridor? And you mentioned, for example, all the pipeline MPDUs are in Silver Spring and Bethesda, so that doesn't that's not particular parts of the corridor in the middle there, it's not going to be as helpful. So I just would love to, that's just more of a data request. I'd love to see that as we're analyzing it. And I think that's it for now. So thank you. This is helpful. I'm looking forward to engaging more with you all. Good work.
Thanks for this. I think this is a really important discussion and something that we ought to be talking more about. And I think the interesting aspect of this is that it is so focused on the purple line, and yet it is so reflective of the broader conversation that we ought to be having and have begun to have, just about housing affordability and preservation of affordable housing stock and increase in housing stock that is needed in order to solve these competing interests. And I appreciate the comments you were making earlier, because we talk about this very much in a quantitative sense, but we also have to talk about it in a qualitative sense. And that's not just the fact that we're talking about human beings and families, not units. We're talking about family units, not just residential living units. But there's a broader context as well, to the point that was made earlier about providing value to homeowners who want to live in a place, who want to see value. The value increases in certain parts of the county have skyrocketed at a time when, over the last 30 years, where they haven't in other parts of the county. And there are homeowners who could afford that haven't seen their wealth increase at the same rate. And so it's not just how do we preserve for renters, but how do we increase value for those to live in a community? And the reason why the value is increasing is because of private sector investment, because of increase in amenities, because of quality of schools and communities and parks and public spaces. And so it's not just we get too caught up in this preservation of affordable housing conversation, I think, and only think about renters and put a certain number on percentage of AMI and say, okay, these are the folks we want to help, and how do we do it? But it's a much broader conversation than that, and we have to have much broader, comprehensive policy discussions on how we do it. And we really have to avoid the tendency to oversimplify. And I think too often, particularly in housing, we do that. And it's, what is affordable for who are we helping? And every decision that we make and every choice that we make has consequences. Some of those are good, some of those are bad, and some of those are mixed. And we have to make these choices with some level of intentionality and some level of strategy. And so I just mostly appreciate this conversation as much as we can have qualitative and quantitative conversations together and really understand not just the numbers, but the context behind those numbers. I think is a benefit to us as policymakers, and just as importantly, a benefit to the public to understand the policy decisions that we're making and how and why we're making them. About the countywide preservation study, I think the purple line is a really great area, and as you, just like the rental study, look at focused geographic areas, I would second or third or whatever we are at this point. It sounds like we're heading in that direction, but I want to add my voice to supporting that. But a suggestion to build off of that, I would focus it almost exclusively on large public investments. So I would do purple line, and I would do future bus rapid transit lines that have been envisioned. And if there are other examples that I'm not thinking of large public investments that we are looking to build political will over, I think they're largely based locally over transportation. So that's what I would personally focus on, but I'm open to any other large public investments. But the broader context of is how do we think comprehensively about these large public investments, and how do we make sure that we are actualizing as much benefit to as broad and as deep of the public as we can. And so I would, I think adding BRT to that, obviously the purple line is the most obvious, but the idea to me is what the purple line is doing, it is creating significant value to a part of the county that had not seen that value through public investment, which is what it's supposed to do. It's connecting through infrastructure areas that were not connected very well. There are less desirable areas because it was hard to get east and west. And now it's going to be easier to get east and west. And so all of a sudden now it becomes a much more desirable area. So, okay, let's figure that out. Same thing with BRT. If we're going to be making significant investments of millions and millions of taxpayer dollars in order to make these significant, connected communities, the value of those communities should rise if we do our jobs right, collectively, executive branch, legislative branch, policy makers. And so how do we then make sure that we are spreading that and sharing that and incorporating as many people into these large public investments as possible? I think there's no better way to do it than to focus it around transportation. We can't have a housing conversation or a land use conversation without a transportation conversation. And I think, focusing every conversation that we have around the geography of movement, where do you live, where do you work, how do you get from where you are to where you're going, I think would be helpful. So that's my suggestion, and
Great guidance, thank you.
I would look forward to hearing where that conversation leads and ends up, and hopefully we'll continue to be a part of that conversation. And I'm glad you're on the Purple Line Caucus. And I think all of us are deeply invested in this project. I met with Purple Line Transit Partners last week, and I'm very hopeful. This isn't just a train. This is a trail that's part of the transportation network as well. The access points to that trail, how the residential communities connect to that trail for healthy living, for a transportation opportunity to access the amenities that we're all hoping that we get. I mean, these are all interconnected conversations. What the tree canopy looks like, how quickly, how mature those trees are going to be. I mean, these are all really important questions that I think all of us are deeply engaged in. And I look forward to continuing this conversation and appreciate everybody's hard work on this.
All right. I wanted to ask about the workforce group. Who can tell me a little bit more about that?
Sure. Again, I'll speak to it, and if anybody else has anything to add. So
Come on down, Tina. I see you're heading our way.
Yeah, sure.
Oh,
Got it. Thank you. Good morning. I'm Tina Benjamin with the County Executive's Office. And just a couple things. This is one of the subgroups associated with the Purple Line Corridor Coalition, which, by the way, this is totally volunteer. This is not yet fully staffed. So I do want to mention a couple things about the broader, and then we can go into some of the other subgroups in addition to the housing group. So the county executive has supported the Purple Line Corridor Coalition this year and the prior year with a $40,000 grant. The coalition was really lucky, and we're so happy to have received a $1 million FTA planning grant, and that grant will help to support the hiring of an executive director for the Purple Line Corridor Coalition. So what has been going on at this table and with the other working groups has really been other duties as assigned for both county staff and individuals like Melissa and Chris who are doing this on top of their day-to-day responsibilities. So it is a very important effort.
it's a lot of money, $1 million for
It's a lot.
for
It's
planning work.
great, and the coalition is actively engaged in accumulating and applying for other grants that will help look at the 4 various target areas.
And that, sorry, I don't mean to interrupt you, Tina, but that grant is to the National Center for Smart Growth?
It actually goes, yes, to the University of Maryland to support the Purple Line Corridor Coalition activities. So the coordination of all of the issues that need to be addressed in association with not only the construction, but the ongoing operations of the transit line. So with respect to the workforce, I will tell you this, the housing group out of the 4 areas is clearly the furthest along. It is clearly the furthest along. The workforce housing, it is still
Workforce
looking.
housing or workforce?
I'm sorry, workforce development,
Okay.
sorry. Workforce development is, they're still looking to identify chairs for that group.
What is the, there was like a sentence or two that kind of spelled it out as to what it's to ensure that the,
Well, it's to ensure that the jobs that are projected to be created along the corridor, right? Because you're connecting New Carrollton through 5 stops at the University of Maryland, Silver Spring, and Bethesda. There's going to be job creation. So it is looking at both ensuring that the individuals who reside along the Purple Line will develop the skills that can help fulfill those jobs. And it's also looking at the job opportunities associated with the actual construction line of the the Purple Line itself. So it's twofold. I think more has taken place on the jobs and skills and apprenticeships associated with the construction of the Purple Line than the longer term thinking. Okay?
Right. I mean, that's already underway. Like,
Yes,
construction
that is
happening.
yes. And including working with subcontractors to Purple Line Transit connectors in terms of apprenticeship programs and activities like that.
Uh-huh.
So we have that going on, and then we have the small business group, which again is moving a little bit slower than the housing. Marla with LEDC and CASA, they are co-chairing the small business preservation aspect of the community development agreement. So more to come on all these as PLCC continues to receive more grants that can help coordinate. And really, this is a coordinating function because there are a lot of groups, as you can see with the housing, this is a coordinating. You have 2 jurisdictions, you have individual city jurisdictions with Tacoma Park, and you have a lot of nonprofit organizations that are involved in addressing these issues. So the Purple Line Corridor Coalition really looks at its role as coordinating and strategizing and policy efforts.
And is it Jared Knapp who?
Garrett.
Garrett, who fundamentally, is the executive director of this. No,
So-
he's not the executive of the coalition, but he is the
Director of the National Centers
director
for
of the
Smart
National
Growth.
Center for Smart Growth.
They will be again hiring an executive director for the Purple Line Corridor Coalition within the coming months.
And will that workforce element of that also be supported by the grant?
Correct.
Okay.
All the different 4 subgroups will be supported through this $1 million grant, and hopefully more to come.
Okay. I mean, generally what I want to say here is that the Purple Line is an incredible opportunity to grow the economy in Montgomery County, in Prince George's County, in the Washington region. And it's a mistake to just look at it as, oh, this is a threat to our communities. We need to look at this as an opportunity for our communities. And, I think I've always believed that providing better services to low-income communities is what we're supposed to be achieving. And there's been a lot of efforts to say, oh, don't bring better services. It will create a vicious cycle that will be bad for people. And I just really don't agree with that. I think we've got to figure out how to provide really high-quality transportation and links to the economic powerhouse downtowns of the region, and we need to create powerhouse downtowns for our county, and Prince George's needs to do the same for itself. So the fact that the University of Maryland is right on this Purple Line corridor is so fantastic, and we've got a lot of resources aligned on this corridor, but I think really what we lack is an actual vision for what kind of economic development we want to have. We're concerned about impact on existing small businesses, and small businesses is a piece of this puzzle, but what we really also need to be talking about is how are we going to build a tech economy as is happening now, starting to grow at College Park at the campus. They're having a lot of success there at the campus. Ken Ullman told me they've created 1,000 new jobs. 1,000 new jobs have arrived at the campus in the last year and a half, as companies want to locate near their computer sciences program. That's spectacular. Congratulations to Prince George's County and College Park. We need to create that kind of momentum and magnetic economic growth in Silver Spring, and we need to, Bethesda has a new lab that's going up, a whole building of lab space. I'd love to see how that is connected to the University of Maryland. We need to be thinking about the Purple Line corridor as a biotech and tech corridor, and then I think the question arises, well, how are you going to ensure that along that corridor that the talent that is there or that can be created there, the young people, the employees who could take positions, how are you going to ensure that they have access to the kinds of educational opportunities that will put them on that pathway? What kind of tech talent pipeline do you have in the Purple Line corridor so that kids all along the corridor have the ability to get trained in the coding and the other kinds of, maybe skills that they would need to be able to access those kinds of jobs. So, I want to see this initiative reaching for those more aspirational goals, and I think that's where Prince George's County is too. I mean, I was on a panel with Danielle Glaros recently, and she, her comment was that they are looking for the Purple Line to be an economic development engine. They're not looking at it as a threat. They're looking at it as a possibility, and they don't want to get caught up too much in how do you stop this from creating positive change and bringing jobs and tackling the fact that there's concentrated poverty all along this corridor. I mean, what is the economics of this corridor? I know you can go to schools where 90% of the kids are eligible for free and reduced lunch. That's too high. That is way too high. That is not a healthy balance for any school to have 90% of the children living in poverty. Like that is how does the Corridor Coalition grapple with that question, Ms. Bondi? Can I just ask you, do you have a perspective on this challenge of what is a healthy economic mix in a community, and does that exist today?
So the corridor has a variety of different conditions depending on where you are within it. So there's no one answer to the question. I'd say, generally speaking, taking the approach that we would use in affirmatively furthering fair housing. We want amenities to come in communities that may be experiencing significant poverty today to help build them out of poverty, and then also ensure that there's a healthy mix of incomes, as you alluded to earlier in our conversation today, so that there's more mix of incomes across the entire continuum, in this case, of the Purple Line corridor. So I would say that those are things.
We need more affordable housing in Bethesda, in downtown Silver Spring. Maybe we need more job training and educational and sort of access to the economy focus, in Tacoma, Langley, Silver Spring, Prince George's.
Right, and as a practical matter, without getting too far afield of my expertise, but in the work that I do at Enterprise and other places, we often look at, everyone wants to attract major employers, but a lot of times it's about building existing employers to become stronger or larger employers, and then also recognizing the incredible amount of people who work in very small, by an economic development perspective, companies, but there are thousands of them. And so trying to see what those things work together, I think that the workforce group and also the small business group will take on more of the tackling on some of the parts of the conversation that we are now just talking about. You are in some ways hampered because you're looking at the housing team. But we know that it's not in a vacuum. The issue of education and things like that, I don't want to get too far afield of what the kind of the core responsibilities are of the CDA. But as a practical matter, we know that good policy and good solutions aren't developed in vacuums. And so to the maximum extent possible, knowing where there's energy, where there's interest, where there may be staff resources or other resources to kind of help inform through stakeholder engagement, ways we should be thinking about things, I think we'll want to do it. I just don't want to overpromise the full scope of everything that, as Tina correctly said, we haven't had full infrastructure and staff, which now the FTA grant and other fundraising that's ongoing now might be able to provide, can help to tackle in a more systematic way.
Thank you. I mean, I think you've done terrific work on the housing element, and I think it's very knowable, right? Generally speaking, or at least we'll get there. And I generally feel pretty good about my reaction to this is it seems manageable. This doesn't seem like the bar is being set in a way that we can't fulfill. And so there is a way to get beyond just saying the Purple Line is going to completely gentrify and make these communities lose their. No, we have a plan. There is an achievable plan that is in place, and we can both promote development in the corridor and achieve our equity goal. Like, these two are not in conflict. We can do them both as long as we do them both. But we don't have to just say, let's not think creatively and imaginatively and think big about economic development. That was why we created this line. It was half of the reason, is to connect people to jobs and to foster new jobs. And that's where the whole economy is going, is these transit-oriented, walkable communities. And we're building one right here from Bethesda all the way to New Carrollton. And it has the ability to just provide what this county has lacked in a lot of ways, which is a kind of walkable, transit-oriented, economic, urban space, and that's where companies want to be. There's a really interesting study right now about the need to turn Silver Spring into more of a bio hub, and the Purple Line is a real advantage in our ability to do that because it just furthers that urban context. Tina, you wanted to...
I did. And the Purple Line Corridor Coalition wholeheartedly agrees with your comments. So
Great.
within
Glad to
the
hear that.
business subgroup, they are looking at both issues. The preservation of small businesses, which is really important during this construction period, okay? That's one issue. And then the second is the longer-term economic development strategy that takes advantage and builds on the line cross-jurisdictionally. So they're going to be undertaking both tasks.
Great. Well, I would like to get involved in the workforce. Yes, absolutely.
So in the workforce development and the economic
Yes.
development?
Yes.
Perfect. We'll let them know. Great.
you, Tina.
And thank you so much for agreeing to be the caucus chair. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Terrific. Will.
Happy to do it, and yeah, it was Jarrett who voluntold me. That's exactly right. Now that it's all coming back to me. I do want to push on. I think Councilman Reamer brings up a great point about the schools. Obviously, housing and schools are intimately connected, right? People choose where they live if they can, based on schools, and so I think it would be great to be, especially with the $1 million and maybe more coming, hopefully, to have an intentional plan of engaging on the school component and partnering with MCPS potentially in some way, and whether it be, it could be as small as hosting the community conversations at schools in conjunction with PTAs, or, but also on the, potentially on this workforce development side, depending on, particularly if it's high schools. I want to push us a little bit to tie that a little more closely with MCPS and with schools, and have a strategy there. I know particularly the housing group, just because it's so connected to people and people are thinking about it at the same time. I think that's probably where it fits. I'm not suggesting you add an education subgroup, but because you have the workforce, but I think we should try to tie those together as much as possible.
All right. Well, we've got a lot of work to do. Linda, anything else that you thought we missed? Okay. Thank you very much for your work. Look forward to hearing back in October as the housing plans are formulated, and we'll follow up on the other items. Thank you very much.